Current Science in Support of Saving a Million Species. Nicole Becker, American Public University System Symposium, for the Senior Seminar, September 23rd, 2020. Lee Hanna, Ph.D. Lee Hanna is the editor of Saving a Million Species. According to the text, he is a senior researcher in climate change biology at Conservation International. He also heads their efforts to create conservation strategies to combat climate change. Along with Thomas E. Lovejoy, Lee also edited the award-winning book Climate Change and Biodiversity. He wrote the first undergraduate textbook on the biological impacts of climate change called Climate Change Biology. Lee has also done a lot of work with the National Botanical Institute in Cape Town, South Africa, in developing adaptations to hotspots in Africa, as well as modeling biotic change. He has led research in improving the technology of conservation planning tools, and he has developed conservation planning software. He received an undergraduate degree in biology from the University of California, Berkeley, and graduated from the University of California, Los Angeles with a doctorate in environmental science. Chris D. Thomas. Chris Thomas is the author of the 2004 research paper Extinction Risk from Climate Change, whose paper is what sparked the writing of the book Saving a Million Species. Thomas is an ecologist and conservationist biologist. The majority of his research in the 1990s was regarding effects of habitat fragmentation on species survival. Lately, his main focus has been on the impacts of climate change on species. He has published approximately 30 book chapters, over 170 scientific journal articles, and has been the co-editor of 9 different scientific journals. He is currently a professor at University of York. Other contributors include Anthony D. Barnosky, Jedediah Brody, Barry W. Brook, Mark B. Bush, Allison Cameron, William C. Clyde, Robert R. Dunn, Matthew C. Fitzpatrick, Peter W. Glynn, and Benjamin S. Halpern. Extinction Risk from Climate Change is a research paper written in 2004 by Thomas et al. And published in the scientific journal Nature. It used species-area relationship STAR models to help determine species extinction risk from climate change. The study found that on the low end, 1 million species were at risk of extinction due to climate change. The paper got the attention of news outlets, scientists, policymakers, and the general public. Scientific critique quickly followed after its publication. Even Nature published articles challenging the paper. It was important because it began making people think about climate change and its consequences. Saving a Million Species was published in 2012. It is edited by Lee Hanna. It reconsiders the central question of the paper, Central Risk from Climate Change. That central question being how many species may perish as a result of climate change and associated threats. It is important to the environmental field because it updates outdated research. The book refines original estimates and is broken into 6 sections: the introduction, refining first estimates, current extinctions, evidence from the past, predicting future extinctions, and conservation applications. It also gets a perspective of researchers, teachers, conservationists, students, and policymakers. Now the book is used as a textbook in universities. Refining first estimates. Since Extinction Risk from Climate Change was published back in 2004, there have been developments in climate change projections. For example, Global Climate Models, GCMs, now combine ocean and atmosphere models and take account of aerosol forcing. There have also been progressions in SDMs. For example, 76 multi-species studies were published since 2004, which were rare back then. The most important development was implementing model validation procedures. Current extinctions. Climate change is connected to declines in terrestrial mammal, invertebrate, and bird populations, and most likely contributed to the extinction of 80 tropical amphibians on the species level in South and Central America. Climate change is heating and acidifying the ocean, which is leading to coral bleaching and mortality. Coral reefs are expected to degrade and die off in the next 20 to 30 years. Polar bears in the Arctic are considered to be at the highest risk of extinction due to climate change, and their extinction would affect the entire ecosystem, from the seals to the fish to the zooplankton. Evidence from the past. Deep time studies show that high global temperatures are not favored by many taxa, and they can steer toward ecological and geochemical processes that can result in mass extinction. According to scientists, only 1 in 1,000 species that have ever lived still survive today. The majority of them are extinct. Even the most dominant of creatures are vulnerable. From the past, it is apparent that individual taxa seem to experience high extinction risk during episodes of uncommon climate change, but that does not necessarily mean a decrease in overall diversity. Predicting future extinctions. Climate change is leading to droughts, which is posing a big threat to tropical forest carbon sink. A number of other factors are making the tropics vulnerable to climate change, including high diversity, limited temperature fluctuations, and fragmentation. Ocean life is at high risk of extinction. Coral reefs are dying due to the heat stress. One study found that 37% of all marine mammals are at risk of extinction. Models predict it will only get worse if no changes are made. Conservation implications. 5 strategies to conserve wildlife under a changing climate are established approaches to conservation biology, strategically managing for resistance, landscape conservation to facilitate natural range change, managed relocation, and ex pseudo conservation. 2,329 biodiversity experts were surveyed, asked about extinction due to climate change and the best strategies to combat biodiversity loss. Over the next 100 years, they predicted 9.5% of species would go extinct due to climate change. When considering other reasons for biodiversity loss, such as deforestation, predictions went up to 21%. Conservation implications continue. Most scientists found that the best strategies for conserving wildlife was protecting important areas and ex situ conservation. Some of the experts suggested managed relocation in certain circumstances. What was most agreed upon through the texts and studies is that climate change is a serious problem which needs to be addressed now.